thing to do this morning. So I enjoyed that. And I hope you all are having a nice Saturday as well. It's always nice to see you. We're in class 9 of 12 here, I was just saying. So the series is starting to wind down, but no less exciting today is Twitter marketing. And we're gonna do kind of like we usually do, a little overview, a little why are we on this social network, why are we talking about it. We'll go into the site, we'll see how it works, talk a bit about best practices. I'll give you some tools and tips, and we'll talk a little tiny bit about analytics and tracking for your Twitter as well. So before we get started, as usual, I think you all know all of this, my loyal students here today. There will be no class Saturday, August 22nd. That's the week after next. All of these slides are online. However, this is the direct link, and for some reason it is case sensitive, so you must type it in all capital letters if you want to check in and get those notes, including the notes from August 22nd. Those will be in the folder after that week as well. Please hold your questions until the end of each slide. I welcome your questions. I want to hear them. They help the class as a whole, but we'll just take them at the end of each slide to preserve the continuity of the class for everyone. And if you haven't, please silence any noise-making device, be it a watch, phone, or other. I got in trouble last night. I came to a talk here at the library, the first Friday, and during the Q&A, I was bored and I was looking at Twitter, and an ad like started playing, like a video ad out loud, and I was like, couldn't make it stop. Happens to the best of us. They did a talk last night with, the author was Mark McClure, I believe, and he just wrote a book called Faster, Stronger, Better, and it's about science and sports and the improvements that people have been able to make recently, and also how you can kind of apply that to your own life. So found it very interesting. Like most things, you know, it's like slow and steady wins the race. Marginal gains add up and really make a big difference. That was kind of my takeaway from the talk last night, and I think you can absolutely apply that to your online marketing too. You know, there's no quick fix, there's no one size fits all, and that's why we're covering so many different things, because for each and every business, what you need might be a little bit different. So let's dive in. And first and foremost, let's just do a basic, what is Twitter? How many people are on it? How many people have a Twitter account here today? Okay, so we've got a few. Who is actively using Twitter? Okay, yep, we got a few, that's great. So for everybody else, in case you don't know, what Twitter is a social network. It was founded in 2006, coming up on almost 10 years old, can you believe it? And it is used to send and read short posts of up to 140 characters. One of these short posts is called a tweet, okay? And that's one really defining characteristic of Twitter, is that each message is only 140 characters. That's not very much. That's like 2 sentences. So you have to keep your tweets pretty short. Now, on the other hand, that means you can send a lot of them, right? People tend to tweet up to 100 times a day. Up to 100 times a day. If I tweets, just each individual post. So the content is really, it's what we might call snackable in the industry, meaning that it's bite-sized, it's easy to quote unquote digest, and it's just these short little bursts of information, thus the tweet. It was actually founded as a tool that people could send text messages to and update their stream online. So if you had, you know, family or friends that wanted to keep an eye on you, you could just shoot off these short little text messages. And we're talking, you know, 2006, so not your smartphone. It was like the ABC typing thing. So they had to be pretty short and pretty concise, and it has blossomed into what we have today, which now includes photos, videos, and the infamous hashtag. I'm sure you all have heard a lot about hashtags. Well, this is the network where they started, and we're going to talk a little bit more today about how to use them and what they're good for. Any questions on the basics? Cool. So let's talk a little bit about why Twitter. I always like to give a baseline of why this social network and not just, well, everybody's doing it. Number one, there are over 100 million daily active users. There are a heck of a lot more accounts on Twitter, but in terms of people that actually use it every day actively, 100 million. It's a lot of people. There are 1 million new accounts created every day on Twitter. So you've still got a lot of traction and a lot of ongoing adoption of the service, which tells us it's not going anywhere, even though they're not profitable either, I don't think. 31% of people who use Twitter use it to either ask for or give opinions about products. So it's a place where people are learning about things that they might want to buy, that they essentially are getting or giving opinions. So if you're a business you may not have a presence on Twitter, but it's very possible that people are talking about you on Twitter. And that's a really big use for this service at this point, is customer relationships and customer management. And that's what we use it a lot for at my company, is answering questions, responding to needs and people's orders, and just helping provide awesome customer service. Certain airlines are really known for actually using Twitter for customer service. JetBlue is amazing. If you tweet anything at JetBlue, they will respond to you and they will help take care of you. And I've actually used Twitter for customer service too. I woke up one morning and my phone wasn't working. And it turned out, ultimately, somebody had managed to register my number. They had I think it was just a typo maybe in the system. But anyway, my phone wasn't working and I couldn't call AT&T, so I sent them a tweet, and they helped me get to the closest location to get the problem solved. So it can be used for a lot of different things, one of which that's really important is customer service. I thought this was also really interesting. 80% of world leaders use Twitter, like major international world leaders. I was listening to a story on NPR recently about how a mayor in Argentina actually responds to every request he receives on Twitter, and he will take care of it. And his constituents say, hey, there is a pothole outside on my street. Can you do something about it? And they do this all on Twitter. So all over the world, even in government, people are using Twitter. It's kind of amazing. And this last stat, 77% of users are outside the US. I threw this in specifically for you, Peter, because I know we talk a lot about international marketing, and I think that this is one of the stronger networks for working with an international audience. And it's also got inline translation. If somebody tweets at you in another language, it translates it for you automatically. So it's a really nice tool for that. Questions? Yes?
Source for 80% of world leaders.
I could send you a link to that. I just checked the stats this week.
Won't create a discussion, but I find that someone actually knows that, and that world leaders give that information out.
Twitter is totally public. Twitter is 100% public. All you have to do is compile a list of leaders and search for their names on Twitter.
But wouldn't they not necessarily use a quote public name?
Yeah, that's what they want to use it.
Yeah, that's what they want to use it for. In this case, they are using it so they can be reached publicly.
Okay.
This is really elementary, but what do you tweet on?
You can tweet on a phone, you can tweet on a computer, you can tweet on any pretty much internet connected device. So we'll go take a look at the interface in just a moment.
So when you said your phone wasn't working, how did you tweet?
Well, I was able to connect to the internet. I just couldn't make calls or receive text. I didn't have any phone service, but I was still online on my smartphone. Yes, yes, but you can use it over your phone network too. It's like any social network, essentially, at this point. We'll take a look. Yes?
So 2 questions. One is, I once opened an account, but I was trying to then find all my friends just like in Facebook,
Yeah.
And I think most people don't use their real name. Is that how it works?
Yeah, people don't
How do
necessarily,
you find people?
well, they don't want to be found then, right?
So it's only mostly these leaders and people and companies that want to be founded.
And, you know, for a given individual, it kind of varies, right? Like me, my Twitter is my full name. I'm very easy to find. It's linked across all my various networks. You know, I'm a person that is having a public business presence. One of my best friends has a Twitter. It's not her name. Her username is not her name. Her picture is not her picture. And she just uses it to tweet silly things about, what she likes and doesn't want it to have any reflection on her, professional career. And I don't even know how we even found each other on Twitter, but we did. And, we're good. So I would say if you're trying to find friends on Twitter, like maybe post on Facebook and say, hey, who's on Twitter? Like, I just joined. Here's my account. Please follow me. And one more thing.
One Twitter account?
Yes. And one more thing I was going to add on that is download the app on your phone and you can connect it to your phone book. And that's another good way to find your friends on Twitter, is they will actually, because when you sign up, they ask for your phone number. And so they can match your contacts to their Twitter accounts as well. That can be a good way to actually find people you talk to.
And then the other question was the example you gave about JetBlue or whoever.
Yeah.
If you want to connect to a company, will you talk to how you do that?
Yeah.
better?
Yeah, definitely. And yes, you can have as many Twitter accounts as you have email addresses. Yes.
Because of the cost, is it counted as a phone call or is it data usage for the time you're on?
Sure. So it is data usage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Data.
Yeah. But again, you can use it online. You could access it from a desktop or a laptop computer. And as long as your phone's connected to Wi-Fi, it's only going to use your Wi-Fi as well. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go take a look at Twitter. I think this may be a good place to start. And we're doing that dangerous thing again where we go into my social network. So no judgment for what you see. Oh, thank God it's a cat. That's that's safe.
Are you streaming?
Yes, I am. Yeah. And these will all be online on my YouTube channel, all of the classes. So this is Twitter. It kind of looks like Facebook, right?
We're not watching.
You're watching the cat. Well, I need to watch the cat. Fun.
It's a replay.
Yes. Okay, so not to be too confusing, but this is Vine. This is a link to a Vine post, and Vine is another social network. It does happen to be owned by Twitter, and it's specifically for these, are they 10-second videos? I've forgotten the exact length, but you get 10-second videos on Vine that just loop. And believe it or not, there are legit Vine celebrities at this point. People of all ages that are making tons of money from their Vine followings. There's a whole tour. There's a nationwide tour for Vine stars, and they go out and they meet their fans, and God knows what kind of money they make. It's amazing.
How do they do that?
Sponsors.
Is
Yep.
that a real cat?
I believe that is a real cat.
So where's the sponsor on this?
So this person, whoever this person is on Vine, they look like they might be Japanese or something. If they're popular enough, they would have sponsors, people that either pay them to post about them or to come to their events or things like that. And that's how this individual makes money. The network itself, Vine, it doesn't really need to make money because, like I said, it's owned by Twitter. Now, how like Twitter and Facebook make money is another story. We're still watching cat videos. You guys aren't paying attention.
But you just click on the word. You didn't get a sponsor. You didn't get a
No. So that's what I'm saying. The networks itself, Twitter, Facebook, they make money selling ads. But the smaller networks like Vine, it doesn't have any ads yet. And just like Instagram initially didn't have any. Money. This is Twitter. And as I was saying, a lot like Facebook, a lot like Google Plus, and any other social network you may visit at this point, you've got a stream in the center. And this is the primary function of the service, in that you scroll and you see in reverse chronological order these little teeny series of little teeny posts that are tweets. And for me, I follow a lot of stuff about pop culture, music, tech, internet, social media. So that's what my feed is. I follow a lot of journalists, and they're tweeting about various things. For example, Outside Lands is going on this weekend in San Francisco. I've seen a lot of tweets about that. And if that's something that I'm interested in, I can go up here to the search bar And I'm going to use a hashtag, which we'll talk about in a little more detail later. But I just type in the hashtag outside lands, and that connects me to a stream of anyone posting about outside lands. So this is really cool, right? To have a kind of global conversation about something. Anytime there's a major sporting event, anytime there is a major television event, you will see a trending hashtag that's related to it. And it's a really interesting way for me as someone, you know, sitting at home on my couch maybe, to see what other people are thinking and saying about something that I'm interested in, and to really sort of have an outside land experience without even being there. So there's a lot of uses for it. Now, it doesn't just have to be an event. You can see over on the left here, it's showing us what's trending today. And apparently it's International Cat Day. That's probably why we were seeing the cat stuff before. And a handful of other things. It should know better than that I'm interested in sports, but okay. And for example, the GOP debate. You know, so these are some of the things that are trending on Twitter right now. Back in my home stream, it looks pretty much the same, and this is a link to my profile. So we will click on that. And this is me, and these are my tweets. Things that I have tweeted about. There's a separate tab for replies, and we'll get into that in a minute, what a reply is versus a regular tweet. You do have a notifications page on Twitter. Again, a lot like Facebook. Anytime someone mentions you or takes an action with you, it'll show in this notification tab. So I can see any mentions or new followers, etc. And then lastly, Twitter has a direct message section. And this is for private messages between individual accounts. And that's accessible by this tab right here. If I want to send a tweet, I can do it from my home page and just click in this box right here. You see I can add a photo. I could also do a location tag if I desire to do so. And on my smartphone, I can also upload videos as well. You can't do that from the desktop version right now, only the app on your phone. But Twitter videos are a new and exciting feature. And I can also use this tweet button right here at any point as well to compose a new tweet. So, any questions about the basic structure? Yes?
I don't see that much when I go on Twitter.
Right.
I don't see quite as much as.
So you need to follow some people. You need to follow some people. And
I don't see the sidebar.
that's a good question, and I don't know the answer to it without looking at your computer. But I would suggest finding some more people or things that you're interested in order to get more fullness on your feed. And maybe that's why you don't have a sidebar, is they can't make a recommendation if they don't have enough information about what you're interested in. But to find people to follow, you can use the search bar here again. And, you know, let's say if I'm a fan of cats, for example, I can type that in and I can see recent posts about cats, or I'm sorry, top posts about cats. So I could see like who is posting about them. And I really like this guy's tweet, for example, about cats. And so now I'm going to follow him. And I would click this follow button, and now I will see all of his tweets going forward in my feed.
Can I fill in my bio and all that?
Yes, yes, and we'll talk a little bit about that too in just a moment. Yeah, you're welcome. While we're here on the search page, I'll let you know, top versus live. Top are the ones that it thinks are the most popular or most interesting. Live, it just shows literally everything anyone has tweeted using the words cat. And you can see on this page, that was 23 seconds ago. This is only 34 seconds ago, and I'm sure there are a ton more down here. And you can also show accounts. So now if I want accounts about cats, it's giving me account options. So that's one thing, just if you're ever looking for a person to make sure, you know, if I want, is Madonna on Twitter? Not that I'm necessarily a big fan. I can see top, which is tweets about Madonna. I can see live tweets about Madonna, or I can look for accounts if I want to actually get her Twitter account. And so that's one important thing to know. And this little check mark right here, does everybody see the blue check mark? That means that her profile is verified, that it's verified that this is actually Madonna's Twitter. And that's how you'll know if it really is the person that they say they are. And that could be really important, right? If somebody's pretending to be Barack Obama or similar. So you see he's got, you know, the blue check mark, and that's how you know that someone is who they say they are. You have to be vaguely popular in order to be verified on Twitter. So I'm not there yet, but maybe someday. All right, so a little bit about who uses Twitter. And this goes back to that question in class 1 of your target audience. And does your target audience fall in this range? If not, Twitter may not be the best social network for marketing your business, but that doesn't mean that you can't use it personally. And that doesn't mean it's not going to work for your business. It just means this is the primary audience on the site at this time. So number 1, primarily adults between the ages of 18 and 29. Again, people of all ages use Twitter, and you may be surprised at some of the really popular older folks, is that an okay word? That use Twitter and that use it really well and are really popular. So it doesn't, it's not necessarily dependent on age. These are just the ages that tend to use it the most. In addition, I'm sorry? There you go. And she's on Twitter, so. In addition, urban residents, and what that means is people who live in cities, metropolitan areas, are more likely to use Twitter than suburban and other residents. Like I've mentioned, also really big for celebrities. A lot of celebrities have really big Twitter presences. They actually communicate with their fans. I could send a tweet to Madonna if I wanted to. Whether she read and responds it is another story, but I know of a lot of celebrities on Twitter that do. And so that's another really cool thing for people, and especially for sort of younger people as well, to have the opportunity to have a real interaction with someone you really like and admire that otherwise you would never ever meet. And one of my favorite Twitter stories is about the 16-year-old girl who visited the state capitol in Kansas, which is where I'm from, and she didn't like something that the current governor was doing, and she tweeted that he was an asshole, okay? And she got a response from him. It got picked up by the local media. It ended up getting picked up by national media. And my point with that is, if she had written a letter in, do you think they would care? No. But because she said it in such a public place and used admittedly a strong word, she got a ton of attention and ended up getting a response from the governor himself. So that's one of the powerful things that you can do with this network. You all may have heard of the Arab Spring a few years ago, right? The revolutions. That was coordinated in no small part via Twitter. When other services were blocked by the government, internet were shut down, people were able to get online and use Twitter to organize and to find places to meet. So it's not just for silly things, right? It's not just for marketing. It really is having an impact in world affairs at this point. So again, the site can be very powerful. Yes?
How do you know a CFO is actually reading his own account or having?
You don't. You don't. And sometimes there are ways to kind of tell just by reading it, right? The CEO of Twitter is Jean Leger, or not Twitter, I'm sorry, T-Mobile. Jean Leger. He's very active on Twitter. And you can sort of tell it's his own personal Twitter just by the way he writes. He uses abbreviations. He's fairly opinionated. You know, you can sort of assume that's coming from him personally. So I think the best thing to do is just like read it with a close eye. And even if that CFO is not managing it personally, he may have someone managing it who, should it be appropriate, will bring
Apple product?
If it's Apple, I would probably go through their online customer service. I would probably go to their website and go through that form. That's a big enough company that I trust them to respond. Other companies and other times, you know, it really just depends, again, kind of on a case-by-case basis. And famously, Apple did not do any social media marketing for a long time. They like just started having some Twitter accounts for some of their properties. So for Apple, again, that's why I would suggest online. Again, for an airline, go right at their Twitter. You're going to get a response a lot faster than picking up your phone or using their online site. You're welcome. And just the last point on this slide in terms of niche communities, I feel like that's one of the things that Twitter is best for. If there is a community that is kind of small and has a specific interest in some way, you can bet that they're going to have a presence on Twitter. There was a guy in the class last time I did this series that had a Twitter account about parrots and like was really popular on Twitter with his parrots. So whatever weird thing it is, I guarantee you can find it on Twitter. But specifically these communities, tech, blogging, sports, entertainment, they all have really large presences in social media and specifically Twitter. Because ultimately, that's what it's for most people, is it's another source of entertainment and information. And when I go on Twitter, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I want to get news, I want to learn new things, and I want to see cat videos and laugh. And so it's important in my mind to keep all of that sort of in your head when you are tweeting, and especially when you want to use it or any social network for that matter for business, is people are on these sites to be entertained or to be informed. And that's the type of thing that you need to provide them if you do want to get attention for your product or service. And then you sneak in the sales. You know, that's why that's that 80-20 thing I always talk about. Yes.
How important is it to have the same name for all of the social media connections?
Sure. That's a great question. In a perfect world, you would have it for everything. In a perfect world, that is absolutely what I advise. Now, is it life or death? No. Sometimes you can't get the account name you want because it's already taken, because it's too long. Those are kind of the main reasons. Or maybe you set them up at different times and we're still refining your own personal strategy, for example. One good thing about Twitter is you can actually change your username. They don't make it very hard to do. So when I started with Print, the company I'm with now, one of the things I did was I went and changed all the usernames so they were the same, because they had Print on some, they had Meet Print on others, they had I Am Print on something else. Like, I don't know who or why set it up like that, and I think it was maybe just different people doing different things within the company. But I standardized as much as possible, other than our Facebook page. I wasn't able to change our Facebook page because it had already been changed once, and Facebook is really strict about making changes. So for us, we have this one account that has a different name, nothing I can do about it, and it's fine.
So, for instance, on my accounts on Facebook and my website, I have my name.
Yeah,
But on my Instagram and on my Twitter account, all of my material is related to travel.
yeah,
So I have another name related to travel
yeah.
on those two sites.
So I think probably the most important thing would be that your website name and your social media names are the same whenever possible. So if you have a Facebook page, if it's a business page, a personal profile, if it's under your name, I feel all right with that. I feel like it's more important that your Instagram, your Twitter, and your website would be the same. That's my 2 cents. You're very welcome. And something else to keep in mind is most of the time when people are visiting your social media accounts, they're coming there from somewhere else on the web, right? They're clicking a link or they're clicking a button on their phone. And in that case, the actual name doesn't matter as much because they're not having to type it in or remember anything. They're just being sent there. They're being referred. So for that reason, it's not critical in my mind. Yes. Other questions here? We'll keep moving. So we've talked a little bit about this. What is Twitter really for, right? What are we tweeting about? What are we using this for? And especially as a business, what is Twitter for? Well, number one, I've mentioned this several times, customer service. Answering questions, providing help, giving guidance, and also it's a great place to monitor your brand name. I use a great tool called Mention to monitor our company, and anytime anybody mentions the word print, I get a notification of that. Even if they don't tag us in a post or tweet at us directly, I can still find that they are talking about us and respond to it. So it's a really good place for monitoring and customer service.
Mention?
Mention, yep. Yeah. Yeah. Low cost branding. And when I say low cost, again, Twitter is free. It doesn't cost anything to use, and it's a great place to tell more about your product or service, and not only about it, its features, but convey your brand, convey the essence of what you have to offer people, and really sort of differentiate yourself. You can talk all day, every day about something that you think is super unique and interesting here that on other social networks might annoy people to hear a ton about. You can get really in-depth and specific, and that's why I said niche communities are really important too.
But that's only if you have followers, right?
Yes, we're going to talk about that. Media outreach. Twitter can be another really great tool for PR, actually. I don't know if anybody has ever tried to get something published about them in the local media. Okay, well, I am here to tell you, if you send an email to a reporter, that's just going into an inbox with 500 others that they are never going to open or read. Most media are super overwhelmed today and very understaffed, and they get a ton of pitches by email every single day. If you pick up the phone, you might have a little bit more success. Sometimes they answer, sometimes they don't. They're probably going to be annoyed that you called them. And they're not necessarily going to want to be pitched. Twitter, on the other hand, if you tweet at a reporter, it's considered bad etiquette not to respond. And just like we are using these tools for our businesses, media now also must use these tools for their businesses. So nearly any writer, reporter, announcer, be it television, radio, or otherwise, will have a presence on Twitter, and they will be almost obligated to respond to you because they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to use it to provide really good customer service and get people to like them and choose their network or their show above something else. So it can be a really great place to reach out to media and possibly get some media coverage for your product or service if you're able to pitch it in the right way online. And finding them, it's just as simple as using that search box and searching for members of your local media. Special offers can be another great thing to tweet about. If you want to give a free consultation or a certain percentage off, or there's a special event upcoming, Twitter is a super good place to share that. And it's also really easy, if it's a good enough offer, for others to then share it to their friends and to their networks on Twitter. Twitter offers a really nice share feature, which we're going to look at next. And lastly, as I've mentioned, there are both public and private conversations. So when I send out a tweet in general, it's going to the stream, anyone can see it. And there are also private messages, like I showed, those are called direct messages. And you can have conversations with your followers that are either public or private. So it gives you a little bit of fluidity in determining how you want to speak to people and where you want that to be done. Any other questions here? Go ahead, Leo.
Okay, customer service.
Yes.
When your phone went out and you had to tweet
Mhm.
AT&T, how did you find it?
I just typed in AT&T in the search box.
Okay, and then that would bring you
To
hundreds
their,
of thousands of
nope,
visits.
nope, because like I showed, it's just, it will, I mean, it'll give me hypothetically hundreds or thousands, but it's very obvious which one is the correct account because it has that little check mark, and it's showing me that first, right? When I type in AT&T in the box, this is the top thing that comes up.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's like pretty aware that that's who and what I want.
But you're going to need customer service that handles your area code, right?
No, no. And my issue, unfortunately, I had to go to the store anyway. And so I was able to just come to their profile, click this tweet button, say, hey, my thing is not working. Like, what do you guys think I do? And voila. Yes.
I have an interesting thing. You can use Twitter. Off that where you can walk, walk and they stuck a sign right in the middle of the soft area saying share the path.
Yeah.
And really likes to walk on that soft section. So I found out who the Parks Department was, and I said, that wasn't real bright. put share the path in the middle of the pathway.
Yeah.
On the soft side, and I'd hate to have to tweet about this. That sign was moved within 5 days.
Well, there you go. That's another good use for it that I had not considered. Yes.
So just when you said, like, for example, you said tweet, did you have to put hashtag anywhere?
No.
Or just say, what are your messages? So you said tweet and then just your message? and
Yep.
then Post.
And then tweet. Yep. Yeah.
That's simple.
Right.
So in the search button, you don't put hashtag before the name.
So it depends. And we'll get into hashtags in a minute. Yeah, let's move on to that. Okay, so a little bit of basics just in terms of the vocabulary. Number one, a tweet is the individual post on Twitter, right? It's one little message, or the act of writing or sharing a post. Tweet is both a noun and a verb. An at reply, does anybody know what this is? Or you can just call it a reply. It's when a tweet is directed at another user in reply to a post. So for example, you know, President Obama has tweeted whatever, and I can click this little arrow button, and I can reply to him. And this is what is known as an at reply. So a couple things about this. I'll say, I don't know, I like the Apple Watch, just to avoid saying anything political one way or the other. So I can send this message, and an interesting thing about the at reply is when you use the at sign, it will not be visible in the feed except to people who follow both me and Barack Obama. Okay, and so I can do this with any of these accounts. You can actually have conversations with people that are public, they're not private, but they're not going to post to the feed. And the reason for that is you can very easily get into a Twitter exchange with someone, and if it's all this back and forth and it's filling up the feed, no one's going to care about like this one tiny little topic that these two people are arguing about. And that's why Twitter filters that out, like I said, unless I happen to be following both of those people. On the other hand, if I did want my tweet to Barack about this to be visible to everyone, as long as that at sign is not at the very beginning, then it will publish to the feed. So for example, if I just put a little period right here, tiny, simple little change, now everyone who follows me is going to see that tweet. Does everybody understand that distinction? This is one, you have to put the period first. Anytime the at sign is first, it's not going to be visible in the feed, essentially. And that's one thing that I see people making a mistake with quite frequently, is you think if, you know, I wanted to tweet, let's say I wanted to tweet about Barack Obama. I'm not tweeting to him, but about him. And I'll say, you know, Barack, I don't even know how to spell it. Anyway, Barack Obama should get an Apple Watch. You'd think I work for Apple. And I'm just mentioning him, you know, I just want people to know who I'm talking about, so I'm tagging his official account. But because of the way Twitter is structured, if I don't put another character first, it wouldn't be a public tweet. So I add that period, and now anyone can see it in the feed. Any character, exactly. And so if instead I said, I think Barack Obama should get an Apple Watch, then I've completely worked around that issue. So that's just a little thing to note when you're tweeting and mentioning another user in your tweet. Now, Twitter, again, automatically filters all of the replies on your feed, on your, individual profile into a separate section as well. So you can see on the left here, I have tweets, and in this section, I have tweets and replies. And so this is where we're replying to individual customers. And you can see why woohoo or thanks so much wouldn't really need to be in the feed, right? It's a message directed specifically at that person. It's not adding any value to a greater conversation. It's just a little note in response to a question. And so that's why it's kind of filtered into a separate tab. And like I mentioned, we can have these really great conversations with our customers on this site as a result of this. People feel really free to ask questions. This was one we got, for example. She just tweeted us, hey, when can I expect my print case to come? And I sent a reply. I think I did that from my couch this morning. you know. So that's, I guess, a pro and a con, is that I can work around the clock thanks to Twitter and social media. But it's pretty easy for me to do. And it's also really important to me that we provide timely responses to questions, because that's how people use social media, is they expect a quick response. And it is appreciated. I get a lot of sort of love back from our Twitter followers because we are so active and we are so responsive. And I will show you, this was really cute to me. One of our Twitter followers did this. And on the left there, that's the print case. That's the product that we make. And you can see they're buddies. They're hanging out. So I thought that was really cute. I thought that was really cute. And a direct result of our customer service on Twitter. So, okay, so we've got the at reply. We've talked about direct messages. Any questions on these ones? Okay. Glossary part 2. A retweet. A retweet is the Twitter equivalent of a share. It's basically tweeting something again that someone else has tweeted. Initially, in order to do that, it was manual, and we're not even going to go into how that used to work. Now, all I have to do is click this button right here. It's a little kind of circular arrow symbol. There it is. And I have the option to either retweet it as is, and I'll show you what that looks like, or I can add my own comment, and then it becomes like a quote retweet. So I would say, I love this. And then I would click tweet, and it would show let me find an example. This is an example of me quoting a tweet right here. And let's get an example of a regular retweet. This is a retweet right here. And you can see it was posted by Marique. This is one of our engineers on the team. And it looks like it's one of her posts in the middle of our feed. And that's because I just did a normal retweet. And so everybody knows who originally sent the tweet. Here's another example of a retweet. But it's posted on our feed now to our followers. And so it's a way to share a post and still give credit to the original poster. That's a really important attribute of retweeting, is making sure the correct person gets credit for doing so. Is that clear? Do we have a question? Okay. So a follower, I think maybe we've got this part now too, but essentially it's just a connection on Twitter. If I want to see your posts, I follow you. If you want to see my posts, you follow me. That's it. And it's not necessarily reciprocal. So whereas on Facebook, we have to mutually agree to be friends, Twitter, I can follow you and you don't have to hear from me at all. So that's how, again, it can be a really good place for celebrities or brands to connect with their fans as well. Let's talk about hashtags, the infamous hashtag. So essentially what a hashtag does is it is a link to a topic. When we put that little pound sign symbol in front of something, it links to anyone else talking about that thing. So if I click on this hashtag SF, there's anybody who's tweeting about SF right now. And like I talked about initially, people use these to link to topics or kind of trending events. It's pretty straightforward when you really get down to it. People use hashtags in a lot of different ways nowadays. Like I just tweeted hashtag amazing. It's almost like a way of sort of adding an emotion or like a word you wouldn't otherwise get to say online, because, you know, let's face it, when we're communicating in these little tweets, we lose a lot of context, right? And people are visual communicators. We take can tell you what I think about a topic or how I feel about a topic without me having to be kind of cheesy about it and say, I think this is amazing, I can just add the hashtag. So there are a lot of different things that hashtags can do, but like I said, you know, linking to something that's happening. I thought that was really interesting. Did anybody else notice all the Facebook logos all over the debate? Nobody watched the debate. Facebook logos everywhere. Like, they were giving them a lot of free publicity, or Facebook paid for that, which I find very surprising. So that was interesting to me. Is that more or less clear on hashtags? I know. In some ways, it's so simple that it becomes hard to explain, but it can be a word or a phrase. People often create acronyms to talk about different topics. It's not always a full word. You can just use like an abbreviation of some kind if you would like. And one important thing about hashtags is there should be no spaces or punctuation. If there is a space, in other words, if you're using two words, you push it all together like one word, like a web address or an email address. And the same with punctuation. If you insert a punctuation mark of any kind into a hashtag, it breaks your hashtag and it's no longer the same thing. So that's just one thing to be careful about. And we can see over on the left here, you know, like I mentioned, these are some trending hashtags at the moment. International Cat Day, Christian Taylor, MUFC. That's an example of a abbreviation. I think that's soccer, right? And football on 5. There we go. MOTD. Don't know what that is. Yes.
Well, if you're gonna, you know, people tweet MSNBC and, you know,
Yeah.
They always have hashtag MSNBC.
Yeah.
Is that how you wouldn't put at MSNBC?
So it depends. And this is one that, like, personally, I have trouble making my mind up about sometimes. This was like I was tweeting about a show on NBC, America's Got Talent. So I did hashtag AGT and then I added NBC AGT so that NBC got my tag if they maybe wanted to retweet it, for example. I did get retweeted by The Voice once, and that was very exciting and got like a ton of favorites and views. But then I also just tagged the name of the show as a hashtag, and so that way for anybody else that's also watching it and like wanting to be part of the conversation, I can interact with those people too. So in this case, it's both. And when MSNBC gives you a hashtag, they're probably monitoring that feed. Yeah. And then also another good thing about a hashtag like that is that you're helping promote them. You know, any kind of branded hashtag, you're helping promote that business in the hopes that, you know, it might get seen by them. Okay. And the @ sign, like I mentioned on the last slide, that's just the @ reply. It means that the user, it's a way of mentioning a user, like a tag on Facebook. And the user will receive a notification in that case. So anytime someone says @Veronica Pastore, for example, I get a notification here. And the same will happen with a television show you tweet at, a politician you tweet at, a celebrity, a brand, or a friend of yours. And it'll all show up in their notifications tab. So a hashtag is a way of kind of connecting to a topic and talking about a topic, whereas the @ sign is a way of connecting to another user, a way of mentioning or notifying another user. Yes?
So are there people on Twitter that are not on Facebook?
For sure. Absolutely. Why? It's kind of a personality thing. I have friends that don't like Facebook. They just don't want to be part of it. They think it's, I mean, who knows? I think it's really about personality. You know, I've heard the quote before, Facebook is where you lie to your friends and Twitter is where you tell the truth to strangers. And so there is some feeling that people use Twitter to be a little bit more honest and irreverent because, yeah, because you can be anonymous. You can be anonymous on Twitter, whereas on Facebook you can't. Facebook requires you to use your real name. That's one of their terms of service. Whereas Twitter, I could make my name anything I want. And like we said, I could have as many Twitter accounts as I want. So I could have a secret Twitter where I go say what I think about things I don't want to tell people publicly if I wanted. I don't. I've thought about it, but I don't. And you can't really do that on Facebook. Also, like I said, it's a lot easier to connect to celebrities or businesses that you're interested in. And Facebook hasn't always been as friendly for people to do that with, for the reasons we talked about last week, right? When you post on Facebook, it only goes to a percentage of your followers in their feeds. Twitter doesn't have any algorithms for their feed. So that's another, I guess, depending on how you look at it, a pro of Twitter is that when I look at my Twitter feed, I know I'm seeing every tweet from the people that I've followed and not what Twitter thinks I might want to see. Whereas Facebook determines that for me.
So how much time of the day does one spend on Twitter versus Facebook?
And and I think that's something we can maybe talk a little bit more about in the last class, like how do you manage all of this jazz? And I'm going to give you some of my tips to make it a little quicker and simpler. But I think it's really a question of saying, is Twitter the right network for me to be on? Is this where my followers are? And a good way to start is maybe just search some of the topics that are connected to your business and see what kind of volume and how many people are talking about it. So before you dive into any network, make sure it's really going to be worth your while. That being said, 10, 20 minutes per day, you're fine. You can really manage it in not very much time at all. Okay. So I think we've got more or less hashtags down, right? Yeah? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about setting up your account. When everybody has their own profile on Twitter, and when you're trying to market with Twitter, it's really important that it's not blank. So these are the things that must be done, in my opinion, in order to start to have a successful Twitter experience. Number one, your username and your display name. We've talked about this already. It can be anything. It could be anything you want. If you're using it to market, most likely a good idea would be your name or the name of your business. But you can see, for example, this is Jane Fonda. She is active on Twitter, and her display name is her full name, Jane Seymour Fonda. We know it's her because she's got this little check mark. And then her username is just @JaneFonda. And I think the reason they're different is the first one is too long, wouldn't fit. There is a character limit on your username. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it can't be all that long. I think my name just barely fits. Here's another example, Coca-Cola. There they are on Twitter. 3 million followers. Ideally, your username is going to be short, memorable, and easy to use. Those things are important so that people can tweet you or mention you, and they'll be able to find you and interact with you easily. And again, ideally, it should be consistent, the same as your other social networks and your web domain. Again, that's not always going to be possible necessarily, so pick something that makes sense, and that I would say the keeping it short, memorable, and easy to use is more important than anything else. Questions about that? Questions about your name? Okay, next, your biography. That is the little section that is right below your name here. And it is an area of about 160 characters that allows you to tell people a little bit more about who you are. Again, it's very important to fill this in, because if people come and visit your profile or see that you are talking to them and they're not able to clearly and quickly understand who you are and what you're about, you're probably not going to get a response or a follow back from them. So really important to fill in that biography and use keywords. Use something descriptive. You can drive people to your website should you so choose. That's something that I've done here, and kind of give your value proposition there. You also have a space, a field for your location. And again, that doesn't have to be a place. nation is Mars or Venus or something like that. And you have a field for your website as well. This is also really important, the way that it shows on the mobile site. That's like the #1 thing you see is you'll see the profile picture, the name, and the biography. So make sure that you fill that in and take advantage of your various characters. Coca-Cola, they don't have a biography. They're too cool. Here's, you know, Jane Fonda's biography.
Yes, you might Coca-Cola. I mean, why would they have any followers? What do they have to say?
Well, they have a lot to say. They're posting about International Cat Day, for example. Basically, it's a way for them to stay relevant and to stay top of mind to people in their target audience. And I mean, everybody likes Coca-Cola, hypothetically, or they're at least very invested in keeping on top of the younger markets. And
I
they,
understand what they're doing. I don't understand why someone would follow them.
so why someone would follow them? Let's see.
How could that be a big interest?
So this is kind of interesting. Look, they've got a national watermelon. You can put Coca-Cola in a watermelon. That's interesting, right? That's why people are following them, to find out about things like that. I would bet they also have, look, they have a 10% off code for Coca-Cola bottles. They're doing like social awareness initiatives. They're probably showing a pretty fun video here. Yeah, that's kind of cute. Who is Coke going to go on a date with? It's going to be the hamburger, the popcorn. So it's just content. It's the type of thing that I was talking about at the beginning, providing stuff that's either informational, like putting Coca-Cola inside a watermelon, entertaining, the cat in the Coke can, or a deal or a special, 10% off of the Coke bottle. And if Coke as a brand really resonates with me, I might follow them. I follow a lot of brands on social media. Hello Kitty is one example. I knew that would, yeah. Because I want to hear from them on a regular basis. And if they're having a sale or a special or something like that, I want to know about it. So that's why. Yes.
If it gets real negative against a brand, maybe they've said something or product recall.
Yeah.
Do they shut it down? What do they do?
Rarely will they shut it down. What most of them do and what they should do is respond as much as possible. And, you know, and it's kind of one of those, I'm sorry you feel that way situations, and or owning up to your mistake. Yeah, so about a month ago now, Taylor Swift tweeted at Apple saying, I don't think it's right that you're not paying artists during the user's 3-month free trial. And Apple waited about, it was like 10, 12 hours. And they responded, and they responded on Twitter, and they said, you know what, Taylor, you're right. We are going to pay the artists.
Is Twitter now, remember the Starbucks guy? He you know, talk about race. I'm wondering if
Yeah.
you didn't respond on Twitter and, you know, give him strong feedback.
They did.
Okay.
They did. Yeah. And, you know, that sort of comes with the territory, right? If you're going to be out there and talking about something kind of controversial, you've got to expect that you're going to get a variety of response.
But he must have got instant guidance to stop that.
Yes.
You know, so
Yes.
that consumer is very valuable.
Yes. And that way you're absolutely right. So even if the feedback you hear is not good, it gives you instant response, and you're not having to wait a month or 2 or 6 like we would have 5 years ago to find out that this promotion was widely hated, or at least not appreciated. So just a few notes about your biography before we move on. Use your keywords. You can also use hashtags in your bio to help people find you. Your location and your website, I think it's a very good idea to include those if you're using Twitter for marketing purposes. When you write it, direct it towards your buyer. Think about what they want, what your value proposition is. And again, this goes back to knowing who your target customer is really well. And show your personality. Feel free to make it a little bit fun or silly or interesting in some way. I always say people want to connect with you because you're a person. They don't necessarily want to connect with a business. They want to connect with an organization that shares their values at the end of the day, and that appreciates the same things they do. So the more that you can be yourself and show your personality in social media, the better your response you're going to get, because people will respond to something they're attracted to. Simply as that. Okay, so a few more notes on setting up your account. Be sure to add both a profile photo and a header picture. This is your profile photo, and this is your header picture. A lot like on Facebook, we have a profile photo, and they call it a cover photo on Facebook. And the same tips that I gave you with that class, make your profile photo easily recognizable. It needs to work at a very small display size. And the cover photo can kind of show anything that you want it to, really. Let's see what some of these guys have. Coca-Cola. Jane Fonda's is actually a little bit pixelated. She needs a higher quality image here. And I think I've given you, yeah, the header picture needs to be at least 1,500 pixels wide. So that's a pretty high resolution image that you need for your cover photo. And the profile photo is only 400, so that's more like this size. But make sure it's not pixelated. It's not that hard, is it? And I said no eggs. When you create a Twitter account and you don't have a profile photo, it shows a picture of an egg. And so that's just like a #1 giveaway, like newbie. Okay, so don't leave the egg. A few other little tools on Twitter. #1 is the fave or the favorite. It's a lot like a like on Facebook, and it's this little picture of a star. So you just click it. I had already favorited that one, so I'm going to re-favorite it now. You can do that to other people's tweets. You can also favorite your own tweet, and just like how I say like your own posts, fave your own tweets. It just makes it look better, like you've got more likes going on. You can also pin tweets. So you'll see on our feed here, we've got reverse chronologically, right, our most recent tweets, but I've pinned this tweet from June 9th to the top of our page. So it's the first thing people see when they visit us. And that's because I know this is a good photo and performed well and drives people to our website. So in order to pin a tweet, your options are these 3 little dots. It's like a menu. So we've got reply, retweet. These are some third-party tools I have installed, so let's not worry about them. Favorite, and then the more button. And if I click on that, this isn't my profile. Sorry, just kidding. Sometimes I'm usually really good about keeping my business and personal separate. So if I click on the little 3 dots, I can pin it to my profile page. You can also delete it here if you should decide you don't like a tweet, or maybe you realize you made a typo. Unfortunately, you cannot edit at this time. You have to delete. Or I can get a direct link to the tweet. I can copy it, or I can embed it. Embedding means embedding the actual tweet, a live version of the tweet, into a web page outside of Twitter. So you'll see this a lot in news articles now, like all this stuff about Donald Trump and what he said. People will actually embed the tweet into the story, and then you can click on it, you can see the replies, and you can also see the live favorites, retweets, etc. Yeah, they'll give you a code. It's going to be an HTML code, and then whoever is writing the article has to paste that HTML into their back end. Yes. So like in WordPress, it would be in the source, right? And retweeting. You know, this is my personal profile, and like I retweeted our company post of going hiking the other day. Yes, sir.
What's the difference between pinning it to your personal profile and tweet? I don't quite understand.
Okay, so if I send a tweet, it's going to publish to the feed of all the people that follow me. Pinning a tweet just keeps a single tweet at the top of my profile regardless of the date. Usually the tweets would roll backwards down your profile as you send new ones. Pinning it just keeps it at the top anytime someone visits my page. Okay, you're welcome.
Only 1 tweet can be pinned?
Correct. So if you pin another one, it's going to replace the previous pin. And I like to change it up on ours every once in a while. Okay, and lastly, if you're new or creating a new profile, be sure to send a few tweets before you get out there and start being active and expecting to get followers. Nobody wants to follow an empty profile. I don't know what you're going to be tweeting about. I don't, even if your biography gives me some idea, I need to see a little bit of content from you to know if you're someone that I want to follow and engage with. So make sure that you send a few tweets before you start trying to promote yourself online. Okay, a little bit about best practices. And this is kind of a general guide or advice for when you are using Twitter. Number one, be responsive and say thank you. This also kind of harkens back to the earlier days of Twitter, but it was considered good etiquette to thank someone for following you, to thank someone for retweeting you. You could even thank for a favorite. I think that's a little much maybe at some point, but for our business page, anytime anyone mentions us, anytime someone tweets an article about us, I always say thank you for the tweet every single time. And it really does help increase your followers. I just saw a study from HubSpot, and they said 1 in 4 of those thank you tweets will result in a new follower. So for very little effort to start to get new followers that easily, I think it's totally worth it.
That's a full-time job.
It could be. It could be. But you have to get pretty popular first. I mean, even for us, we have 3,000 followers on Twitter. I can get through our mentions maybe 10 minutes, 2-3 times a day. So it's pretty manageable until you're getting really, really big, typically. Next, using hashtags. I do recommend you use them, but use them wisely. Don't use more than like 3 per post. Some people start to go a little crazy with the hashtags, and it just gets obnoxious. And it also starts to become a little illegible. When there are so many tags in a post, you almost can't read it anymore because it's all a link, right? And it's all just like this bright text jumping out at you. So use your hashtags wisely. And I also wanted to show you can put hashtags at the middle, anywhere in the tweet, or at the end. So a lot of the time people think the hashtags can only be at the end, but they can actually be in the middle of the post as well. And that's a good way to conserve your characters too. You know, if I'm saying I am at this wilderness event, I can put my hashtag there, and then I don't have to add it at the end as well. Include pictures. Tweets with pictures perform a lot better. It's the same thing I always tell you. We're visual creatures, and an image of some kind is going to jump out a lot more than a single line of text. When I tweet for our business, I would say 9 times out of 10, even more than that, I include a picture with the post because they perform so much better than just text-only tweets. So include them as often as possible. And as I mentioned, you can also do video from your phone, graphics, infographics, things like that, all good for Twitter. Tweet often. I would say 10 to 20 times a day. The most followed accounts on Twitter tweet an average of 22 times per day. The most followed accounts. So if you're looking to really get popular, retweet a lot, share a lot of links. That's a good way to do it. And lastly, I would recommend you use a calendar. Make your posts part of your social media calendar, like we talked about last time, with your Facebook schedule and your blogging schedule and your email schedule. Have an editorial calendar and have a plan for at least some of your tweets on a day-to-day basis. That's why I can manage our Twitter so quickly, is because I sit down once a week and I plan things out for the following week. And in the day-to-day, it only takes me about 10, 20 minutes, depending on the amount of activity we've received. Questions here? Yes. Yeah, I think that's a question, again, of getting to know your followers and thinking about what's going to be interesting to them. So for us, I'm fortunate to be on a team of 20 people, and we attempt to require that all of our employees submit 1 link every week that they want to share with our community. And so ideally, or hypothetically, I have 20 people giving me content to put out on our Twitter account. For them, they have to submit it once a week. So that gives me like 20 extra links to play with each week. And then I try to find some links and interesting things too. You don't always tweet about, I'm sorry? Yes. Yeah, well, one thing I was going to say is we don't always tweet about ourselves, right? We tweet about interesting news, things in the industry, other companies we support. So this is my company's Twitter account. Here's an example. 50% of mobile photographers rely on the cloud. Learn about the concept here. Here's another example. We are all about diversity in tech. What do you think about the I Look Like an Engineer campaign? And they're getting some decent interaction. You know, when I started running our Twitter, we really weren't getting any response, you know, so to get a couple of retweets and, you know, 4 faves is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. This one was also jumping on a trending topic earlier this week. It was this I Look Like an Engineer. This woman had been used in an ad. She is an engineer, in fact. And a bunch of commenters said, way to use a sexy chick in your ad to try to recruit people. And she said, no, I look like an engineer because I am one. And so that was a big social media conversation over the last week and something that felt relevant for our brand. So we shared a tweet about it. And, you know, this is an event, for example, that we had. We had a user feedback group if people wanted to come, retweeting some news about us, tweeting about donuts, okay? Like it really can be anything that is interesting. Anything that you find interesting or think that your customers will find interesting. And frankly, there's no shortage of interesting stuff online.
And you feel even though it's not relevant to your product, it's still worth tweeting.
Correct, because it's helping keeping us top of mind because we're tweeting interesting things. And when we tweet good content, people will then retweet it and share our content with their friends, but it's attached to our name. And so that's a great way to get spread and to get new followers is by tweeting great content. You're welcome. And it's always, in theory, related to our brand in some way. We're a photo company, you know, tips for getting your perfect pose in summer pictures. All right. So this is just what we were talking about, tweeting links to get more retweets. Links are more retweeted than any other type of content. Don't talk about yourself too much. So I always try to apply an 80-20 rule. 80% of your post should be informational, 20% should be promotional. So for however many times you're tweeting, if I do 5 a day, that means I get 1 that's promotional or 1 that's about print. And in general, in terms of best times for Twitter, if you want to get the most retweets, post in the afternoon. And the afternoon is from 3 to 5 p.m. in your target customer's time zone. Again, this is a general rule, but kind of like we talked about last week, people are on Twitter in the afternoons because they're bored at work and they don't want to be doing their job anymore. So that's when Twitter is the most active.
Challenge if you're a global company.
Correct. It is a challenge. It's a very big challenge if you're a global company. And to that end, we use a tool called Buffer, and I can actually just schedule the tweets automatically. Buffer is one of those really great time-saving tools. I've got all of my accounts in here, and I set up my own schedule. So I select the days of the week, and I select the times I want it to post, and then it does it for me automatically. And I have this great little Buffer bookmarklet, it's called, in my toolbar. And so when I'm on a page, any page on the internet, I just click the Buffer tool and it automatically grabs a link, puts it in this composer. I select which networks I want to post to, and then I just add it to my queue. Yes, sir.
Do you have a professional Buffer account or just?
I have a professional one for our business, and I actually pay for my personal one as well. I like that darn tool so much, yes. Yeah. For the professional one, I think after a certain number of accounts, you have to pay for the pro plan. Like we wanted to attach 5 social networks. Yeah. Yes.
Do some companies block Twitter so their employees can't use it?
I believe they do. Yes.
I read an interesting stock report on Twitter, the reason their stock is dropping is they call it a lonely place.
Hmm.
in social media.
Well, and that's interesting, and I think that speaks to the point of the question over here earlier, like, why don't I see more stuff in my feed? People don't always know you need to go out and look for other interesting content you might like.
Getting those.
Yeah. You know, and they're not bad. I usually do find them interesting, actually. So that's, you know, Twitter it's a little more techy. It really is. You know, it hasn't seen the kind of mass adoption that Facebook has. And I think it's for some of the reasons we've talked about. They're shorter posts. Only recently were you able to add video, and photos were in the last probably 6 years or so as well. It's just a very different type of network and way of communicating.
They also said it's harder to use.
Ostensibly. Does it seem that hard to you guys? No. No. I mean, and especially on your phone, I love Twitter for mobile, and I think that that's really like what it was created for. It's just so fun to scroll through and read links and retweet things. I'm a fan of Twitter personally, and it's also been really beneficial for our company because that's where our target market is. You know, we have a really young audience, generally speaking, so Twitter has been great for us for that reason. Does it compare to Facebook? Not really. It doesn't, but you know, it's there and our customers are there, so we're going to be there too. I think that's the way to look at it. So we don't have a lot of time left. I need to get better about being on time, guys. Let's talk a little bit about growing your network and lead generation, because these are kind of the most important things when we're talking about marketing. So how do you get followers, right? You've done all this work to create your account and understand the tool, and you're right. If you're tweeting and you don't have any followers, nobody's going to see it. So number one, follow other Twitter users. You can search for people based on their demographics, their interests, their industry, their location. Go follow others that you think would be interested in your tool or product or service, and they may follow you back. Initially, in the early days of Twitter, this was another one of those Twitter etiquette things that if someone followed you, you were supposed to follow them back. It was supposed to be like kind of a one-to-one thing. People don't feel that obligated to do that anymore. I don't feel obligated to follow anyone that follows me, and that's another thing I really like about it opposed to Facebook. I feel like I have to be friends with some people on Facebook, and on Twitter, nope. Like if I'm not interested, this is my feed. This is my place to see things that I want to see. On the other hand, that's why we want to create Twitter accounts that provide great, engaging content so people will want to follow us in return. Retweeting others' posts can be another good way to get attention on Twitter, because anytime you retweet my post, I receive a notification of that. So searching for content and retweeting it, and also engaging. If someone asks a question, you can send one of those replies, or you can ask people what they think. That's another good way to get their attention. There are a couple of like social media marketing tools, and they'll just tweet me and say, hey, do you have any advice about branding on social media? Because they want me to become aware of their product or service. And when they do that, I'll check it out. I'll take a look at it. And I have actually subscribed to a tool as a result of that. So it's definitely can be a tool for customer acquisition. Share great info that others will want to retweet. Like I said, you post great content, your followers share it, their followers find out about you. And lastly, do include a link from your website in your email signature, maybe any printed collateral to your Twitter account, just like I say for all your social networks. You've got to let your existing fans and customers know that you have these tools so that they can help spread the word for you as well. So a little bit about lead generation. How do we find customers on Twitter? Well, you can think of it's a very up-to-the-minute tool. It's very fast. It's very quickly paced, as you saw from some of those streams of tweets, just how many were sent in the last 30 seconds even. So you can use Twitter as a tool to give buyers what they need in the moment. I was working with a restaurant once. They were in a little like beachy area of the town we lived in Florida. and they delivered sandwiches to people on the beach. You could actually order and they would bring you a sandwich on the beach. So one of the things that we did to help gain new customers was to search Twitter for Siesta Key, people out on the beach, and if they tweeted anything about going out or especially being hungry, things like that, we would say, hey, here's a coupon and get 10% off your sandwich delivery for Beach Bites. So we're able to find people in the moment who need the product via this totally free tool with information they're just volunteering. And people, believe it or not, are checking in and saying, I'm on Siesta Key Beach. And you can guess that some portion of them are hungry. And that's another very trackable tool also. You can see exactly how many people take you up on those offers and really start to calculate your ROI and your response. Also, Twitter is great for driving traffic to your website or your blog. Like we've talked about in previous classes, the blog is more where you can capture people's informations, capture their email address, and market to them via their inbox, where we tend to have a higher conversion rate than social media. But we can use Twitter to drive people to our blogs by sharing links to our blog posts, and also by using hashtags. Hashtagging about certain topics, people can find your information and hopefully visit your blog. It helps you encourage top of mind awareness, again, with your existing fans. Depending on the product or service that you have, they will keep you in mind and be more likely to come visit you more frequently when they're communicating with you on this regular basis. Seeing your tweets in their feed helps keep you top of mind. And lastly, like we've talked about, it's an opportunity to really offer exceptional customer service. We've all seen horrific customer service, hours of wait times, waiting on the phone, hold music, bleh. Twitter, you can bypass all of that and you can provide that high-level customer service to your fans. Don't feel as if you have to respond the second you get a tweet or the second you get a question, but the sooner the better. So try to be reasonable about it, but try to get back to people as quickly as possible, and it will be appreciated. I can't tell you how many tweets we've seen in our company account just saying like, you guys are awesome. We love your Twitter. Like, thank you for being so responsive. It is really appreciated. And while it's not rare, not everyone goes to that link. So it's another way that you can differentiate yourself and show your customers that you really care. So I always like to give some resources and tools, and some of these we're going to talk a little bit more about in the last class of the series, class 12, Analytics, Management, and Tracking. But a few resources, Hootsuite and Buffer. Buffer is the one I just showed. Hootsuite is a similar tool that I used to use. Hootsuite actually has your Twitter stream inside of it. So for someone who's managing multiple Twitter accounts, Hootsuite is a fantastic tool because I can manage them, post to them, check my feed, send responses, all inside of one dashboard without having to log in and log out all the time. If you only have one Twitter account, I think using the native Twitter site is perfectly functional. And that's why I like Buffer for my scheduling instead of Hootsuite. So that they do the same, but Hootsuite offers a little bit more in terms of managing multiple accounts. Also some resources to learn more about Twitter. Two I really like are Kissmetrics and HubSpot. They do a lot of online marketing themselves, and they share a lot of really great and helpful information about online marketing. And lastly, oh, I got a notification. Thanks. Somebody tweeted about me. So, okay, quickly though, this is an example of doing it wrong. The @ sign is at the beginning. Only I see it. So what I would do, how I would write this tweet is I would say, we're learning how to tweet better in @Veronica Stories class. And you could also tweet at Mill Valley. I know they have a Twitter. Yeah, there they are. At Mill Valley Library.
Now, can you correct it?
No. So he would have to delete and repost. Yeah.
Now, how do you delete it?
But that was a good example, and thank you for being embarrassed in front of the class.
And we're required to.
Yes, but that's a grammar mistake. That's not a Twitter mistake. I am not the grammar police. Yeah, I can't take on that job. So Twitter analytics. Perform, etc. And that's free and available to everyone. Analytics was something new from Twitter, so take advantage. In terms of your homework, this is really just an action plan for anybody who wants it. Don't feel pressure. But if you haven't already set up your account, pick your name and a photo. Photo is required as far as I'm concerned. Follow others, and follow not only people who could be your potential customers, but follow people that you find inspiring, or accounts you might want to emulate, or people that provide good information for you. You can use it as a resource for yourself as well. And I find our business Twitter feed just as interesting as my personal Twitter feed, because it's the same thing that I've done there. I've followed things that are relevant to what we do as a company. So I actually spend time checking both the feeds every day. And again, if you're going to start using Twitter for marketing, try to spend 10 minutes a day and try to start tweeting. It can be really easy to just fall in the trap of being a watcher, of not actively contributing anything. So make sure that you're sharing some content from time to time too. And we have, again, no class the 22nd. We have slides online. I promise to leave a minute for referrals. If you have someone, I've had several students ask about referrals for marketing services, social media. Peter had somebody?
Yeah, I could write it on the board.
Let's do that.
2 weeks ago, someone had asked, I'm not sure that she gets.
Yeah. I don't know if she's here today or not. And I also had somebody asking for website design. I don't know if anybody knows anybody, but maybe we'll do, I'll do referrals at the beginning of class next week instead of at the end. I meant to do it at the beginning this time. I'm sorry. And I think we're done.
And or the last.
I'm sorry?
And or the last class.
Oh, yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, just real quick, by putting the at Veronica story in the middle, then everybody gets it.
Yep.
Against at the beginning, it only goes to you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you could do just a meeting afterwards if people don't have interest. How do you see who your followers are?
If I go to my profile, I can see I'm following and then my followers.
And that's the list of them down below.
Yeah, these are all the people that are following me. And like I said, I'm a bad person and not following back a lot of them, but I don't care. Personally, yes.
Just put your, the final screen.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, now, what am I looking at there? Slides online and
This is a link.
why isn't that more simply done by just putting your website?
Because it's not on my website. This is a folder that the library is hosting with all of the various slides.
I see, because of the library. Okay.
Yeah,
But normally when you put your website, I mean, to make it easier.
yeah, for sure. For sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yes.
How long is how long can I access
The slides, that's a good question that I do not know the answer to. I would assume at least until the end of the series, and I don't see why they would take it down. But the library would have to answer that because this is their file. I'll still have them all. If you ever want to email me, you can. It's veronica.pastore@gmail.com. And I always respond, right, Peter?
And the live stream is available.
Yeah, the live stream is, it should be on my YouTube channel. Yeah, my YouTube channel. I know. So many things. Yes. So let's see. Yeah, so here is the one from last week, for example.
So what don't you?
Go to,
YouTube and just search on your name?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's the easiest way to do it. Yeah, apparently my username is VLP250. This is like a very old account. This is another one of those things I
So
can't.
Just go to YouTube and put in your name.
Yep. And so,
VLP250.
yeah, or you can, if you do Veronica Pastore, it'll find me as well. Yeah, you can see here we are, Twitter marketing live now.
So other people could be, can they listen to you?
Mhm.
Well, they can actually listen.
Yeah,
I used it last week when it was great.
good.
Or if you forget it in 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, you, Twitter bought Periscope.
Yeah.
And you could have also done this on Periscope.
Yes, but it wouldn't, I don't think they keep a record. I don't think they keep a copy. And also I would have to do it from my phone, whereas this captures my screen.
Oh, right from your.
Yeah, and also it posts to YouTube automatically. Like I don't have to do anything. Just when I'm done, it's automatically there. So that's the Google Hangout on Air that we talked about.
Is there a charge?
No,
Do you notify all your followers that this is available?
I haven't done that. I might.
Because that's what Periscope. The thing I like, they're trying to make it less lonely. Where you can go
Yeah.
to Periscope and live feed and all your people on Twitter.
Your Google Plus had a post.
Yeah, my Google Plus, it does post automatically to Google Plus.
Can you tell if anyone's following you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 0 viewers.
They lose.
Exactly. All right, thanks guys.
Thank you very much.
See you next
very
week.
much.
My pleasure.
Great class.
Thank you.